Hey, let's have a look at a story from Breakfast this morning. They're talking, the topic that they're talking about is to do with rents, right? Landlords tax breaks, will it bring lower rents? Now, this is a conversation that we've been having for the last wee while. I actually think there's one really important part of this, and that is I think Christopher Bishop wasn't supposed to admit where they got their professional advice from, because he kind of showed a little bit behind the curtain how we've been saying for a long time they'll take the professional / official advice when it suits them, and when it doesn't they undermine it. But there's a place that advice comes from which they've already undermined, where in this conversation for the first time I've heard Chris Bishop or a National Party MP or minister say that's where they got this information from. I might be a little bit long-winded there, but you'll get it when it comes up. I'll find it for you and it will come together. So they're debating, will tax breaks actually lower rents? And I have to say, Daniel Faitau makes a very fair point around Labour. Labour, you had your shot. You had full control. You had a majority. You could have done whatever you want, and you did nothing, which is absolutely fair. And what we say this about a National Party who pivots away from the question and goes, Ginny does this, she pivots away and she goes on her own business. You can't escape the ills of the past Labour Party. Doesn't mean you can't look to the future and hold this government accountable for their ills, but we're going to say to you as well, yeah, you fucked up. Just remember, you fucked up as well, and you could have done things that you didn't do, Labour. You always remember that. And if you had done those things, maybe you'd still be there. Right, so here's the conversation from this morning, a little part of it.
Yeah.
Ginny, I'll start with you. Grant Robertson's speech, he called the tax system, as you heard, unfair and unbalanced. Yet you guys were in government for 6 years. Why didn't you do anything?
Well, that's something we'll be looking at over the next couple of years, because we know...
See, that's not an okay answer. That's actually what National does. That's what National's been doing. When they get challenged with someone, they say, yes, we're going to fix that. And look, I didn't say they do nothing, right? I see when it comes to this conversation, they can't pivot away from what they could have done in the tax system in this situation particularly. And Ginny has just done, if a National Party MP had just done what Ginny had done, we'd be saying the same thing, which is you can't just pivot away from that, because this is fair to us, Labour. If it's an unfair tax system, you had a full majority for 3 years, you've been in for 6 years, why didn't you guys...
No, hang on, I've got to correct you there, because the report telling us about how the tax for the rich was only half of what low income earners earn was completed during the Labour year, but it didn't come out and it wasn't completed until late 2022. So
I agree with you, but you can't
so
say
the information wasn't there yet. But that's
no.
standing up for them not putting it through. That's just me saying, look, they've tried working on it, and then
I'm not going to correct you by the hoof, because everyone in the chat will be on my back like white on rice. But what I will say is I refuse to accept that report was the only thing that they could have done in that full 6-year term.
And I don't
they
think
could have done lots of things.
Yeah, I really don't think they did the report intending not to act on it, but that's what happened. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but they could have done other things as they were going through. They could have fixed holes. Yes, they didn't get to the report because it wasn't through in time, but we can't just say that they could have done nothing for the other 5 years and 9 months that they were in there. It's like you got to at least you got to own that, Labour. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, we'll keep going. Mm-hmm.
Our tax system is unfair. But what I would say is that this government has just got its priorities wrong, to be putting landlords' tax cuts ahead of the disability community, ahead of police pay, new classrooms. They're the sorts of things that we think should take precedence over giving landlords a tax break.
Chris?
Well, what we've done with landlords is restored the position to what it was prior to 2021, which has said that interest is an expense as it is for every other business, and running a property company is the same as any other business. And
okay, we've had some very good feedback on this, haven't we? That is not the case. Because as was pointed out, I think by Anna Burns-Francis directly to perhaps Christopher Luxon, it's not like any other business, because any other business you pay tax on your capital gains. The profits that you make in any other business you pay tax on. In housing, you do not pay tax on your capital gains. You pay tax perhaps on your income, on your rentals, but you do not pay tax on the capital gains. If your company value goes up, you pay tax. If your property value goes up, you do not. So we've got to make sure we keep saying, Spider Hoof, that it's not like any other business, especially when it comes to taxation. You want to jump in on any of that?
Absolutely correct. That's all I need to say. Because now they think we're arguing in the chat, so I'm going to be nice for a minute.
No. No. We're not an echo chamber. Argue away.
I'm only joking. No, because that's exactly right. And, never in the history of rental values has it gone down for any significant amount for any significant time. And it's only ever gone up. That's it. That's all.
Yep.
That's all it'll ever do. It'll just keep going up.
Yep. And listen, if they keep saying something that's wrong, reporters, journalists, interviewers, you must keep saying that it's wrong. It was a great line when it came out the other day. I think it might have been Anna Burns-Russell's. I'm not entirely sure. But just because they say it again the week after, the talking point doesn't mean, I know you've said it before, TVNZ, but you say it again. No. It's not like any other business. Other businesses pay tax on their capital gains. Housing does not.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we'll keep going.
So it's a completely legitimate tax situation that we are returning to. That will put downward pressure on rents because you saw a lot of landlords exit the market because of increased costs because of that tax increase from the last government. So I think it's a good thing to do. And of course, we want to lower income tax over time as well. And you'll see more about that in the budget coming up at the end of May. The big problem that we've got in New Zealand is a spending problem. And that's why we're very focused on bringing discipline back to government spending and making sure that the big debt we grew during the last 6 years, we get under control because we don't have a lot to show for that borrowing.
The Treasury themselves have pointed out that there's absolutely no link between giving a landlords a tax cut and lower rents. That's just not true. There's no evidence there. All it means is more money in the pockets of landlords, and those renters don't get passed on that benefit. What we think is $2.9 billion going towards tax cuts for landlords at a time when the disability community aren't getting frontline services is just not fair to Kiwis.
Well, firstly,
but Ginny does make a point.
The official Treasury advice is that the interest deductibility restoration puts downward pressure on rent. So that's not. Well, that's what they say.
Trickle down doesn't work.
You just said the Treasury said that doesn't happen. If you should go and read the regulatory impact statement, it makes that exact point.
So, did you hear it, people? Did you hear it, Spides? Did you hear what Christopher Bishop told us we should go and read? I'll play it again for you if you missed it. So there is 3 little words in there that he says. Have a listen again.
You just said the Treasury said that doesn't happen. If you should go and read the regulatory impact statement, it makes that exact point. So
now, I don't know about you, Spides, but I haven't heard anyone tell us yet where their official advice has come from. Chris Bishop told us this morning that their advice that the interest deductions are going to put downward pressure on rent has come from a regulatory impact statement. Those are the 3 words he just said. You should go and read the regulatory impact statement then. However, his boss, our hairless leader, says that regulatory impact statements aren't worth the paper they're written on. In fact, he went so far as to say we're cancelling regulatory impact statements because even if they were going to get written, my ministers wouldn't read them. Now, why is it good enough for Christopher Luxon to say regulatory impact statements are no good, we don't want them, we're not going to use them, yet then where it's something that they can use to push through their bullshit narrative, all of a sudden, you should go and read the regulatory impact statement. What are your thoughts, Spides?
They contradict themselves constantly. I don't think they even care if they are contradicting themselves. And I think they fully are aware of it as well. And if you don't mind, while I'm on the show, can we call them Baldylocks?
Baldylocks, sure.
Yeah,
up to you.
It's my favourite.
I like our hairless leader because that works as well. But Baldylocks, let me just make a note. Go make a note. Baldylocks, BAL. But it's just, I mean, we've said this for a long time that they will use professional official advice when it suits. But I think today, maybe I'm the only one that thinks this is a significant deal, that they have been talking down regulatory impact statements. They've refused to do them. In fact, we found out a couple of weeks ago, there may be an issue with one of our free trade agreements for doing that. But when push comes to shove, they've also been using them. So it just goes to show, for me at least, another level of bullshit from these guys, another level of ridiculousness, and another level of hypocrisy, when it's not just official advice, but it's literally the documents that they've told us aren't worth doing, is what they're using.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Seymour outright refute science-based information going, we're not, no, it's not for us. I don't believe it. It's not for me. So for them to pick and choose or cherry pick or decide that we're just going to say something for the sake of it, even if it's not true. And I think in this interview, it turns out that his statement from the regulatory statement is not actually true. So I just think they rely on a thing called we just hope nobody looks it up, basically. And so they did that all throughout their campaign, said anything they wanted, just hoping that nobody actually did the math on it or actually investigated it, and then just continued even after someone pulled them up going, this isn't true. So yeah, they just don't care. There's just zero credibility on their moral construct of their information that they're providing the public.